Hey everybody, guess what time it is? It's time for the Ruby Girl Talk with your favorite Ruby Girl, Dr. K, also known as Coach K, your AI bestie. So this evening I have with me Shana.
Yes.
Said it right?
You're
Woo!
right.
Comments. Come on, y'all. Come on. I've already got 1 point on the board for getting her name right. So good evening, Shana. I am so glad that you are my guest tonight. And so, what I love is when I get a client's book and I get an opportunity to read it or to start reading it. And when I tell you, I have taken her book that we're going to discuss tonight, Memoir. Did I say it right? Memoir?
More.
Memoir. Thank you. I hope I said it. Memoir of a Burdened Child. I started reading it, and when I tell y'all, it's good. If you're a reader, you know when you get a book that you either stay up all night and read, you don't even go to sleep, or you get a book that you just carry with you every little minute you get. You reading, and reading, and that's what I've been doing. It doesn't matter where I was going. I was like, "Where my book at? Where my book at?" It was like my purse. It's been my purse for the last few days. So before we get started, you should be on my page so you can start sharing this video. But I'm just going to talk about the Ruby Girl brand right quick because some people don't know. So, Ruby Girl comes from Proverbs 31 and 10. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above the price of a ruby. I added a little special effect on that tonight, y'all. So, that makes women virtuous and also valuable. So, ladies, I want you to know that the Ruby Girl brand is about restoring the value of the woman. We have slipped in the respect level for ourselves and how others respect us, but this is a movement to let women be aware that we are the prize, that we are God's priceless princess, that we were God's last creation. So that makes us special, and we wasn't created out of dust. So we are outstanding, y'all. God looked upon us and said, y'all gonna be different. Y'all gonna bring favor, and y'all gonna be the last creation that I have. So we are rare jewels. We are truly rare jewels. But tonight, I want to get into this interview, but I'm gonna have Miss Shana go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I want to shout out Ty for making this connection. She shared a couple of your interviews before, so I'm definitely familiar and just really honored to be here. So my name is Shana Cummins. I'm a CPA, a mother of two, and an author of Memoir of a Burdened Child, my debut memoir that I wrote. That's broken down into two parts: the mess I was born into, which is my childhood and the traumas that came with that, and the mess I created. So taking those traumas and taking accountability for the things that I did in my life as an adult.
Okay. Do you have a way for us to get in contact with you?
Yes, Facebook, although, I'm trying to do better on social media, I'm not really on there as much, but I know that needs to change. So you can reach me at Facebook, Shana Cummins, and I also have a website, becomingunburdened.com.
Okay, becomingunburdened.com. I love it.
Yeah, I
I
want
love
to
it.
take
So,
it a little further, not just be a burden with the book, but what happens after that.
okay. Okay. I love that progression, transformation. Love it. So, you just talked about the title of your book. It's called The Memoir of a Burdened Child. What does the phrase burdened child mean to you? And then just tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so when I was thinking about the title of the book, I was actually listening to a song and the word burden came up and I had an emotional impact to that. Like I started to like tear up a little bit because in the song it said I don't want to be a burden no more. And now when I was thinking about my childhood, I felt like a burden. I felt like I had to carry more um emotionally responsibilities, all of that than I should have at such a young age. And I was like, okay, seems like for me that I was a memoir of a burdened child. Like I was that child carrying everything for all the adults that was around me. Um, I grew up in Pontiac in the late '80s. I kind of talk about that a little bit because that's the town that was surrounded by GM plants. Most people that live in Pontiac have their family some way tied to the GM plants, and that was my grandfather. We lived on the north side in a small 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom house. It was my mom and my two sisters, my aunt, her son, and my grandparents all in the same house. And in the book, it takes my journey from that point up until the first part until I'm 18 and graduated from high school. So I dealt with a lot of difficulties in that early part. Became homeless at 11, had to figure out where I was going to go. I kind of became an adult at such a young age that I didn't have a childhood. And then the second part kind of goes into I get into college. I go to Howard University. I'm away from Michigan. I see how it is to live a freer life outside of all that has come on my way. But I wasn't quite prepared for that journey. And so I came back home, got entangled in some things I probably shouldn't have been. Um, and then I had to learn how to let all that go to become the person I am now.
I love it. As I was reading your story, her book is an easy read. It keep you on point. It's not a part where you're like, oh, let me skip it. You're turning pages really fast, like, okay, what's next? What's next? And so you were talking about when you was talking about when you live with your grandmother, and I love the role that your grandmother had in your life. Grandmothers can be so instrumental in
Yeah.
their grandchildren's life because I think sometimes grandchildren might listen to them a little bit more than their mothers. What you think about your role as far your grandmother's role in your life?
She played the a pivotal role in my life. I think that she was the first person that actually see me in the household where it was kind of chaotic, you know. She took a special interest to me. My grandmother was a teacher in Pontiac, so before I could even start school, it was all about learning, you know, and I would love to learn. I knew how to count, I knew how to add, I knew how to read, all before going to kindergarten. And this is because she continuously poured into me spiritually. My grandmother was Jehovah Witness, and I talk about this because this is really confusing. You usually go to the same church that your family go to,
Mhm.
but for whatever reason, my grandmother sent me to a Baptist church. So I was a Baptist kid growing up in a Jehovah Witness house, which I didn't understand nothing about Jehovah Witness. I knew Baptist, right?
Yeah.
Um, but she installed in me going to church. Like I always wanted to go. And I like put that love for God in me. Like she opened that door for me. So she put the foundation pieces that helped me throughout life.
That's good. I always say this. Adults never know the impact that they have on a child's life, and they should always be looking for opportunity to sow seeds of greatness into a child, especially a child that might be overlooked. Like if it's a bunch of kids, because you said you grew up you was quiet, right?
Mhm.
So a quiet child really gets overlooked because a quiet child is usually considered to be a good child because they're not getting into anything. You ain't got to yell at them, worry about them, everything. So even through their quiet child, they get overlooked. The squeaky wheel definitely get the oil. And so you talked about the people in your life that made an impact. And it was some good people that was there for you. It was like God, even though you were going through some things, God planted people here or there to show some goodness in your life. So who do you think that you talked about in your book that really planted some real good seeds into your life?
It was quite a few people. It was people that actually I haven't even mentioned in the book, but I think along the way, staying with one of my friends, Vanessa and Gina, it would just so happen that me and my mother, we went to a shelter one night and we didn't go back. And I was walking through the neighborhood and she's like, "Oh, you can stay here," you know? So being able to open their home for me to stay there. But I have to say, the person that changed my life the most was in my book. His name is Lee. Um,
Yes.
he gave me the foundation to really overcome a lot that I was going through and to focus on what do my future look like versus my circumstance that I am in now. So he would probably be the one I'll give the most flowers to in this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was reading about Lee, he was such a respectable man,
Mhm.
and y'all had some persecution because of the difference in race, but he didn't care about that. His heart was just open to that you was a younger. To me, he was like a father figure.
Yeah, he sure
Yeah.
was. He stepped into that role like anything, even as I was becoming like a lady and trying to figure out my life and what's going on. I could turn to him like, "Hey, I'm going through this," and he's just like, "Oh, let me tell you about this," or I needed to go to a doctor or whatever the case may be. He's right there making sure I'm okay, or like a lot of the stuff I had to navigate for myself, even going to the dentist for the first time. He helped me navigate that because it's a lot of stuff I didn't know. Um, when I got my first job, he told me, hey, he took me straight to the bank. We was not going to the store to spend it. We going straight to the bank. And he was like, put $100 into your savings account. You only keep $15. The whole check was only $115, but he was like, you save 100 and you do whatever you want with the 15. So he kind of put those seeds into me when I wanted to do driving school at 15. He paid for it, but it was a loan. So he taught me how that works. When you
Yeah.
take out money and you borrow money, he I had to pay him back every single check until I paid it off. But it was really just teaching me those foundational skills.
Wow. That's amazing. Here's somebody that's older, don't
Mhm.
even really have to have any ties to you, and of a different race, but he decides to just pour into you. And even though I was reading about the one part in the book where he had initially had to put your family back because of what had happened at the house,
Yeah.
the robbery. And so I didn't think you would come back. I didn't think, most people would wash their hands and everything, but that showed you the type of heart that he had. And so people with a
He didn't
good
say no first.
yeah, but he eventually said
Yeah,
mine would
he
have just been a
did.
no.
Yeah,
But
absolutely not.
nope. Let me give you one reason why. And
Yeah.
so for him to even, how can I say, forgive,
Mhm.
that was big to me because I started thinking about the little stuff I might be holding that people did to me. I said it's important to forgive people because you never know how you can step back into their lives and be a blessing or point them in a direction, because sometimes I think the enemy causes that chaos in a relationship because he knows the type of influence or the type of help that that person can offer you. And
Yeah.
so for those that's out there watching, it might be somebody you like, I had an absolute horrible, well, had a bad experience with, but then sometimes you need to revisit it and say, can it be redeemed?
Mhm.
Can it be fixed? And your relationship was able to be fixed. And he gave you some stability that you hadn't had in a while because you said you ended up homeless at 11. Tell us about that.
Well, that's an interesting story. I get a lot of questions on that. So living with my grandfather at one point in time, everybody had to leave his house. It just seemed that once they left, they never came back. So I was kind of going through, middle school, not really wanting to be there anyways, just
Yeah,
because of all the abuse that was happening in the home. So
yeah.
I try to stay out as much as I can. That was either playing sports or spending the night at friend's house. And so this week it was winter vacation. The first week I just was with my friends the full week. Then I came home and he just stood there and he was just like, you got to get out of my house. And I was just like, okay, I guess it's my time to go because my mother left. She didn't come back. My older sister left. She didn't come back. My older cousin left. He didn't come back. So in my mind, I was like, okay, it's just my time, right? I
Mhm.
have to go. And from there, I no adults talk to each other. That's the other part that kind of doesn't make sense. No adults said, "Hey, can she come here?" So I just called my dad's sister and said I was coming over to visit because I usually do on the weekends or when I'm out of school, but I didn't tell her I needed to live there. I just called her to say, "Hey,
Uh,
can I spend some time with you?" And she said yes. And I was still nervous to ask if I could live with her. I don't know why I was nervous. So I told my older cousin, um, can you ask your mom if I could live here? Because I think that she could ask her. Um, and she asked me like, why do you need to live here? And I said, well, my granddad said I had to go. I ain't got nowhere else to go. So I was wondering if I could stay here. And my cousin, she like a single tear just slid down her face, and I will never forget that we were sitting there, and it was just a single tear slid down her face, and she went and asked her mom, and her mom said yes, and so that started this journey, and throughout that journey, some things happened. Like my sister at the time was pregnant already. And when she decided to, well, when she gave birth, she asked me if I wanted to come live with her to help her take care of the baby. And I'm like, yeah, I'm 12. This is my, little nephew. Of course I'm coming to help you take care of the baby. It was nothing that could stop me from doing that. And so some of those decisions were my own to leave where I was at to, help my family and stuff like that.
but at 11, you shouldn't have been making decisions like that.
No.
Yeah, a adult should have been a guardian over you to make those decisions for you. And sometimes children can, slip through the cracks, especially when their mother and father are not present in their life. You can become not only a burden child, but handed around child, unless somebody say, "Hey, I'm about to take care of it." But to come home and your grandfather say you have to leave,
Hmm.
that's got to be devastating any age. But at 11 years old, I would have had a lot of questions like, no, I'd have grabbed my grandfather's leg, but like, no, no, you just was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like I said, I felt as if it was my time to go. I'm not gonna argue with them. And if you read the book and kind of see a little bit of his personality in there, it's his way or else, right? So to me, I felt that there was no room to talk to him about it, and I just accepted it. My thing was already on to problem solving, so I don't know what it was that was in me that just said, okay, I'm not gonna talk about the problem because the problem still got to be solved. So I'm not gonna put my energy in trying to figure that piece out or worry about that or stress on that. I respect his decision and I'm going to go. And that's just what it was. And I'm just so thankful that we had some moments, even when I got connected back with my mom, where we slept in cars and we slept in vans and all of that, in and out of hotels. But for the most part, as a kid, you don't even realize that's bad, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of adventurous.
Yep.
It's like, oh, let's sleep in this car. I never slept in a car before. It's kind of cool. It's becoming an adult, like, oh, that wasn't. Or, being at the hotels, me and my younger sister going swimming and stuff like that. And we're still trying to hold on to part of our childhood that way of like the things that we like. We like to go skating, we'll go skating. We like to go to the movies, we'll go to the movies. So I didn't realize how bad it was
Hmm.
until I overcame it and really started reflecting on it.
Wow. That's a lot just in that short amount that you shared with the audience. I hope they get a picture of how your childhood wasn't a normal childhood. You had to be like a grown child. When you said when your grandfather said for you to go, 11-year-old should have to process, well, what do I do next? I got to make this happen. You should have been playing with dolls. You should have been watching cartoons. That's the only thing. What cartoon I'm gonna watch today? What little doll I'm gonna play with today? But you had to make adult decisions. Even for adults, that can be hard when they don't have a place to stay. But you know what? It just shows you what God had put in you.
Hmm.
God had put in you exactly what you needed to live the life that you need. I
Hmm.
mean, even though you had to make adult decisions, you were able to say, "Hey, I know I got to find somewhere else to go." And you figured out how to do it by getting your cousin to ask her mom. So, another question for you. Now, as you wrote this book, was there one memory that you found just really hard to put on paper that maybe you cried when you wrote about it or it just really affected you?
Well, there were many memories that I cried about. Um, I would have to say, Fear Could Be Crippling, chapter one. That was pretty difficult because I still feel that, that little girl, the 4-year old, I still feel that fear. Although the person, yeah, isn't here anymore, I still kind of felt that. Um, Writing about my grandmother, us sitting at the table on my fifth birthday, I felt really sad in that moment because it's like, oh, I still hold on to that, but she's not here no more.
Mm.
And I think it's so interesting. The chapter of Lee almost didn't come about. It was actually a paragraph
Oh.
that was a part of another chapter, but that one I probably cried the most. And I was just, it was a release actually, because I didn't even realize I was still holding my breath around his death because I
Yeah.
never took time off. I just worked through it. And when I wrote it, it really gave me the chance to breathe and it gave me the chance to grieve in a way that I didn't many years before. He's been gone for well over 10 years. And I finally released that. So I
Mm.
think that had to be it. But it was many. But that's the one that was empowering in its own way. And it became a chapter when it really wasn't meant to be in the beginning.
They always say writing is therapeutic. I think sometimes when you tell your story, write your story, when you just share your story, it frees you up.
Yes.
It's like it brings something up out of you and it flows out through your hand into that pen. And like when I was reading about Lee, like I told you, my heart was really affected. And y'all have to get the book, even if y'all just skip over and read that chapter about Lee. But it was very heartwarming. It was very shocking, but I understand you're not grieving that. That sometimes when your grief lands in front of you, you can't handle it at that moment.
Yeah.
Because maybe you have life things coming on, or it's so overwhelming that your mind cannot process it at that moment. And then eventually you keep going, and then one day it comes back and it's like not I and then you have to deal with it. So I'm glad that as you wrote the book that you were able to properly grieve for him and properly, let him go, because what he did in your life was just life changing for you. He was one person that I saw that you could depend on.
Hmm.
Yeah, that he was steady and he offered stability. And that's important for a child to be able to trust someone.
For sure. He gave me the footing. Like I would have never went to Howard if it wasn't him. If it wasn't for him, you know. That was like a dream of mine. I'm like, oh no. He was like, if this what you want, I'm gonna support you through this, you know.
Mhm.
But even when I came back, it was like he still was there, you know, supporting me along the way. When I had my first son, he was still there. And I that's one thing that when I think about their relationship and their bond, that hurts a lot too, because you know, my son was probably like 4. He
Mhm.
doesn't quite have those memories anymore, but
Yeah.
it's just like they were so close.
Oh, wow. So what we're going to do is take a minute break, a 60-second break. I've gave everybody out there on Facebook a chance to share this video. I gave them a chance to comment on this video or ask questions about this interview. So if y'all haven't, I always tell y'all get to typing like a mad person because I'm about to go and look and see what people are saying. But during that time, Shayna, I would love for you for 1 minute, say whatever you want to say. Are you ready?
I am. Maybe not a minute, but we'll see. Let's go.
All right, let's go, girl.
Okay, so definitely you get the book on Amazon. I also it was placed on my heart after I wrote this book. I didn't want it to be just what happens after the fact, right? I don't want it to feel like a burden anymore. So I started this company. I don't know where it's gonna go or where God's gonna lead me with yet, but it's called Becoming Unburdened. And it's so interesting as I was looking at the logo, sketching it out and everything like that, that I realized becoming unburdened is be you. And it was just something so powerful in that. So please stay tuned for whatever that comes to be. I'm just letting it happen naturally, but I think it's going to be a good thing.
Okay. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm excited
I had to
about it.
come back once I get it all situated so I can show you.
Okay. You got to come back. You are always welcome. So we got some comments out there. We got some people out there watching. Lorraine said, "Amen" with a heart, girl. You said something that she had to say amen to. Ty, shout out again to Miss Ty for making it happen. She said, "Your grandmother was like your angel." And then we got Shaniqua. I hope I said that right. She said, "Shayna, girl." She seemed to be so excited, like, "Girl, look at you doing it, girl." And Ty said, exactly. The decision that Shayna had to make as a young child were mind blowing. They truly were. And let me see who else. Shaniqua came back and said, powerful Daquisha. Hope I'm saying y'all names right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. She said, proud of you, sis. Here's Ty again. Third time try. She said, can't wait to hear the next chapter becoming unburdened. And we got Candace in the house. She said, hello, ladies. She made it into the comments. So I want to thank everybody that's watching, everybody that shared this. So now we go into the second part of the show. And so in the second part of the show, she's going to talk about a little more different things. We hit up on her childhood, her book. We heard how that adults were not there as they should be in her life. And so when adults don't show up as your guardians, as your protector, as your provider, then as a child you have to improvise. And so it steals something from you. Because I think about Michael Jackson
Mhm.
and how as he got older he still seemed childlike because he never had that opportunity to be a child. Everybody has to have that opportunity to be a child, because even when you're adult it'll show up, it'll leak out in some area that maybe you're not immature in. You'll find a person maybe collecting dolls or doing something connected to their childhood. So many people are carrying their childhood wounds into adulthood, and they don't even realize how deeply it affects their lives. It affects their job choices, even who they marry, how many kids they have, and everything. Now, how did these wounds affect your adulthood, and how did you overcome them?
It's a lot you say actually. It got me thinking.
Paragraph, girl.
Yes, for one, the front of the book. Um, if you look at the book, you'll see that it's a rose coming out of concrete. That's kind of, I always feel like that represents me. It's homage to Tupac's song, but it represents me like the rose growing from the concrete. But it's a big rip in the book,
Hmm.
and there's me as a child. So just like you were saying, if you don't kind of deal with that, your childhood will influence your future when
Hmm.
you don't even realize it. So for me, it showed up in a lot of different ways. It showed up in who I decided to date, how I dated, um, having children early, not really, being rooted and grounded in, for one, healing from those traumas. Um, those are, I think, the major ways it showed up, and how I healed from it is I stopped pretending that everything was okay. And actually had to face myself, and that came through therapy. I knew something didn't quite feel right. It was like I was getting all these accolades and work was, it was, I was progressing, climbing that ladder. Everything was happening great, and it still is. I love my job, I love what I do, but my personal life was not together. And I just was wondering, like, how can I have such a great experience in this field, but this is just falling down? Something is wrong. So, um, Shaniqua, she commented, that's actually one of my best friends. She told me about Therapy for Black Girls podcast. It was just a podcast. And I would listen to it. I would just find different episodes that kind of resonated with me. And from there, I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a therapist. And I found the therapist, and I actually started to unload and actually look at myself in the mirror like, okay, you have to fix this. It's not what my mama did, my dad did, my granddad. None of that stuff that happened in my childhood. Although, yes, it was unfortunate, I have to heal from that, but I also have to take accountability for the things that I did. And that took a lot for me to say, okay, you know what? That was kind of on you. And I needed to change myself and how I react to situations.
Do you know some people are still stuck in the trauma that they went through? And you talked about in your book how you and one of your baby fathers, y'all trauma bonded.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I think a lot of people are looking to bond with somebody that's been through the trauma. You hear people say all the time, he can't preach to me unless he been in them streets like I have and everything. They're trauma bonding. That's not spirit to spirit. You want somebody, you feel like if that person has went through exactly what you went through, then you can be like, oh, now I can be where they're at, that they're
Yeah.
your example. But no, you can't trauma bond with somebody. It happens because I find people like when I give my testimony, they're like, oh, that happened to me. And we have a connection. But the connection should always be a spiritual connection. But you know what? It's good that we're talking about trauma bonding. You're going to talk about it a little bit more so that people know, like, oh, that's what I've been doing. Because I really didn't think about it until you put it in your book.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of bound with something that's familiar. And it could be
Yes.
something that like I think with that person, he went through a lot and I went through a lot, and we were talking about it, and it did, like you said, it felt good. It felt like, oh, this person sees me. But they only see you through that trauma, right? The moment that I tried to do something different was I was going to school. If you read the story, you see like I started to, go to school. This wasn't what he was doing. So we were no longer on the same level. I don't think we probably was on the same level to begin with, but that's neither here nor there.
Mhm.
Um, we were no longer connected because he was still stuck there, and I didn't want to be stuck there. I didn't want that to define me. And I think that sometimes it's something that just feels good to the flesh in a way. Like,
Mhm.
hey, we're here, we're at this spot, but you can't grow with that person if they're still stuck there.
That's true. That is so true. That's true. It comes a time when you use your trauma to help you get ahead in life. When you make peace with it, when you understand that what happened to me as a child, it was not me, it was the adults around me dealing with their own trauma.
Mhm.
that they've been through. Because sometimes we see the fruit of what a person is, but we never see the root that was planted in them to make them act in that behavior. You was talked about how your grandfather was a mean man, you know. How
Yeah.
was he treated when he was a child? Why did he have to, did he have to be a grown child when he was growing up, you know? And so when you step back, like the issues that your mom had, because I know that she wasn't really prevalent in your early life, and you explain that in the book, what happened to get her where she was at. Everybody is where they're at based upon some things that have happened in their life, but some people never choose to move forward. Your mother eventually chose to move forward, and I applauded her for that. You know, I was like, yay, you know. But the thing is, just because something happened to you, it does not have to become you. It does not have to be your story for the rest of your life. And in your book, you talk about that. And in your life, we can see you're a CPA. As we were discussing CPAs, I said most CPAs are not black women
Mhm.
that I see. That's not the normal form because I worked in a corporation where the people that had CPAs did not look like me.
Mhm.
You know, now that I think about it, I don't think I saw only one black woman. She got her CPA after it was a requirement to move up. And so I commend you for that. Not only did you become an accountant, you went the extra level. And I noticed too that your childhood, your school was important to you because you was talking about how it wasn't for your sister, but it was for you. And so sometimes you got to find that thing that drives you, that keeps you afloat in the midst of your trauma, in the midst of your pain. And you found that in
Yes.
your school.
Yeah, I mean, I was always school was a thing that was easy for me as a kid.
Uh-huh.
Again, my grandmother planted those seeds. I learned how to count as a young kid, like 3 years old, 2 years old, walking up the stairs and adding. I can still vividly remember her utilizing my figures to add. So it's always something that I just enjoy doing. To this day, I'll get lost on something about learning new things. Um, but one thing you said about trauma too, I wanted to get back to. I feel as if you have to be aware of it. If
Mm.
it gets so ingrained in you, you don't recognize it because it's who you are. Even when I started therapy, I was a little afraid at first. It wasn't like, hey, I know I wanted it, but how do I live without holding on to it, right? Who do I
Yeah.
become? Those were questions that I asked myself, and it scared me a little because I don't know that version that didn't let traumas run their life. And yes, it does produce good things as far as my career. It was the thing that was kept driving me because I feel as if, hey, I was still that little kid sleeping in the car or worrying about food where I wasn't there. I was very, I'm doing pretty good for myself. I don't want to say very successful, but I am in my own right. So,
Yeah.
but in my mind and in my body, where the traumas are, I was still that kid running from all that stuff, which produced the greatness in my career because I'm like, I gotta get this, I gotta do this, I gotta get the CPA. I did the CPA. I'm an MBA. I got my MBA. I got all of that because I felt like I didn't want no door to close on me, and I wanted to have every opportunity. I always wanted to have a job, so I went for a career that, again, if you read that part of the book, I talk about my career and stuff that I know for sure I'm going to build a skill set that makes money because at the end of the day, you need money to survive and live. So that was the driving force of that. But that's all rooted in my childhood stuff too. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not discounting because, like I said, I love what I do. Um, but I also had to face it. And one of the things that my therapist told me is like, you'll be okay. You don't have to go get another degree. You're all right. You don't gotta go. You are okay. And it took me a long time to realize that I'm okay. Now I still like to climb that corporate ladder just because it's in me, but it's not from the same place it was before.
That's good. That's good. And you know what? You're not the only woman of color that deal with I need another certification, I need another degree, I need another that. And we talked about it,
Yeah.
how as African American women, we have multiple of this, multiple of that. But then when you look at the CEO of the companies, of these big companies, they don't have as much education as most black women do. We go over and above because I think it's been planted. We have to have more than everybody. Where they can have 2 degrees, we need to have 5.
Yeah.
in order to be equal to them. And so we were talking about how black women are so undervalued. I know this is a little bit off topic, but it's part of her life and it's part of your life too. If you are African American woman or woman of color, we are so undervalued. And so we as black women, nobody ever looks at our unique journey. The things that we have to go through, how we have to grow up fast, how we have to try to figure things out because streets are a little different for an African um American young girl versus a non-African American young girl for us, you know? And so with you, I think about how even through you, like you said, you got an MBA, you got a CPA, baby, you sealed. Your future is sealed. You hear me? Your resume stand out. It's 3D. It should be 3D. But for us, we don't see it like that. We
We
keep
deal with
thinking
imposter syndrome.
Yes, the imposter syndrome. And it's like, why is black women? Because we're being taught we got to be more. And then if you think about it, remember when I say we're like last in line? So
Yeah.
when you're in the back of the line and you want somebody to hear you, you got to be loud. So we got to be loud on our resume. Oh, MBA, CPA, LMNO, PEA. You know, we got to have all that on our resume because we feel like because we're counted so low, we got to make our voice loud. We got to be heard. And so we're so misunderstood. It's not that we're loud because we're angry. We're loud because we're overlooked. We're loud because we are a double minority. We're loud because we carry burdens we should never have to carry. We got to carry our man. We got to make him feel good. He come home with this pressure that we don't understand. Then we got to take care of the kids. You know, it's a lot on us.
Yeah.
But I commend you. I want you to know, don't feel like you're a imposter. Everything you did, you have worked for, you have earned. And I think about what if your grandmother had not put that foundation of education in you? That was your lifeline. She didn't even know that was one of the tools that was going to help you become as successful as you were. Didn't even know.
No, she was just doing her thing, but it was it's something that actually, like I said, still stay with me now. I love to learn.
So if you could sit down with the little girl you once were, what would you say to her today? What would you say to her?
That in therapy, this that was probably the most difficult exercise I had to do, and we do it often. It's like, what did you need in that moment? You had to talk to your younger self. So I got a little practice with that because I'm like, I don't even understand what that's supposed to mean. I don't. What do you mean? What I'm supposed to say to my younger self? Or you know, um, I didn't want to get into it, right? Because I
Mhm.
think there's still some pain in there. So it took me a long time to be like, okay, just do it. Don't fight it. Just do it. I think what I would say to my younger self is, you're okay. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to, because I almost have like type A personality because of my childhood, and everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Their life is not perfect. And if you're out there watching, put in the chat what you would say to your younger self.
yeah, it's a good
I,
exercise. Or what your younger self needed in the moment where you
yeah.
felt that you didn't have it. Um,
That's a good one too.
a little difficult to do, but that conversation or pouring into where you at now to that younger person is it heals you. Because I also talk in a book about how your body doesn't know the difference in pain. Like the time might go on, but that pain that you had in your childhood is still there. So you
Mm.
can talk to your younger self to heal that, so that that is no longer what's running your life.
That's good because I'm sitting thinking of you. I was like, what would I say to my younger self? You know, it's so much I would sit down and say that she'd probably be like, shut up. I gotta go read a book because I was a reader. You're interrupting my reading time. But what I would tell my younger self, since I asked you, so let me ask the question. I would probably tell my younger self, you are okay like you are.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to make you think that you're the most ugliest, unloved person when you're not. And you're going to impact the world in such a phenomenal way and people's lives. And so that's how it was with you, Shayna. That little girl, I wish I could have told her, you're going to be so amazing. You're going to stand out like no other woman stands out. You're going to go to the top of the line when it comes to being an accountant. You're going to grow up to be so beautiful, so wise, you know. Can you imagine just hearing those words as a little girl? I remember one time I was at a museum and this woman was talking to her daughter. You so stupid, hurry up, da 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 da. And so I was like grieved by that. And I had some Girl Scout cookies in my hand. And so I said, ma'am, can I give her these cookies? I said, I can't eat these cookies. And she was like, yeah, go on, give them to her. You know, you can tell she was irritated with the child. So when I gave her the cookies, I said, I want you to know you're the most beautiful little girl I've seen. And I could tell it kind of lifted her. And I said, you are so smart. I could look at you and tell. And I gave her the cookies. I wanted the words to
Mhm.
always be lodged in her heart, that even no matter what her mom says, she remember what a stranger told her. And sometimes we have to look for that child that's burdened. And what would you want if it's a burdened child watching this interview? What would you want to say to them?
I would just say release what you don't need to carry. It's not yours to hold, and release it.
Yeah,
You don't have to carry it.
yeah. That was a word for adult out there too.
Mm-hmm.
A good word. I hope y'all put in the comments what y'all would say to y'all younger self, some advice or something. So, after someone closes the last page of the memoir of a, I don't know why I can't say it right. The
Murder child.
memoir of a burdened child. I've been practicing all day. What is the one conversation you hope it starts in their heart with someone they love?
Um, I think that talk about the things that you buried. Talk about the things that you're afraid to talk about. Um, Face it, because one of the things that was a result of writing this book, and I kind of talk about this in the later chapters with my sister, is we talked about some of the things that happened in my childhood that she was unaware of, and she told me things that I didn't know, and I didn't realize how much she was actually carrying too. And I think
Mhm,
it's important to have those conversations that you just felt like you couldn't have back then. It's healing on both ends.
mhm,
um that's where it starts. Face it. I think we, like I said, a lot of times we run from our traumas and we don't acknowledge it, but I think you have to acknowledge it to face it, to change it.
mhm. And sometimes you have to um speak on it
Mhm.
in order to get healed from it. And but start to speak on it from a place of victory, of you're no longer a victim, but a victor over it. You know, I hear some people, oh, that's your past, you move on and everything. Until you have been through some trauma
Mhm.
that is life shaping, some stuff that you have to write a whole book about, right, Shane? Then don't tell me to just get over it. This is my story, my testimony. And with this, I'm helping somebody else out. So this has been a good conversation. I pray that somebody out there was like, you know what, my inner child need to be healed. We think just because we grow up, we're grown, but still there's parts in us that still is that little child that cried in the dark, that little child that wished and prayed that somebody would come and be their superhero, that someone would come and see them and just take them up out of that pain. And so we think that because we are bigger and we are taller and we are older, that we're grown, but still, that little girl in you, she shows up in relationships.
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
shows up in decisions that you make. But I'm glad that she showed up and helped you write that book, and everything that you put in that book. It's going to help open somebody's eyes that they'll be able to see, wait a minute. You know, I've been that child right there look like a burdened child. So
Yeah.
you're educating us at the same time.
That's the goal. Hope. Hold the
I
place.
got it.
Thank you.
So this has been a wonderful interview. I thank you for sharing your heart. Y'all, look, I put in the comments the link that you can go on Amazon and get her book. I want you to go out there and get her book, because there might be a mother that's raising a burdened child and she don't even know. And until you get that book in her hands, she might stop and think like, wait a minute, this is my child. But Shayna's story needs to be heard because it's encouraging. It helps heal your inner child as you're reading that book too. It ain't just about a story that she wrote. It's about healing that she's packed up in those words, because she's showing us that, yeah, this happened to you, but it doesn't have to be the ending of your life. It's
Yeah.
just the beginning. Books start different and they end different. Am I right?
Uh,
Yeah, a happily ever after book has some sadness in the middle of it, but in the end, what happens? It's happily ever after.
yeah.
Yeah. So give us 2 minutes of parting.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that because I thought that I would read a little bit of the epilogue of the book. I'm gonna paraphrase it a little bit, but I think it's just perfect way to end it. And it's so funny what you just said because it kind of that's confirmation for me, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, so the purpose of writing this book is to share my story in hopes that it inspires someone else to live life to the fullest. The beginning isn't the end. And I'll take that one step further by saying you have the power to change your life. A difficult beginning doesn't mean your story has to end up badly. Don't let your traumas define you. Be a continual learner. Surround yourself with people who motivate you to do better. Working on myself has been one of the most challenging things I've ever done. There's no more pushing emotion down or running from them. I had to face them and make a conscious decision about who I wanted to be. I'm still in the process of learning and growing. There's no magic pill for healing. It's a lifelong journey of deciding how you respond to the circumstances of your life and how much power you allow them to have. Life can give you the best or the worst, and how it shapes you depends only on you. We can't always change the circumstances that come our way, but we're always in the driver's seat when it comes to how we react and how we allow those moments to shape our lives. I'm still learning that. I now know that I can't save everyone, though I wish I could. I hope I can at least plant the seed that there is greater waiting for you if you choose to do the work and make it happen. My beginning was never my end, and neither is yours. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Ty, too, for making this connection. I really appreciate it to be able to share pieces of my story. So thank you.
That was good. Now, tell us once again how we can get in touch with you.
Facebook, Shana Cummins. And my website is www.becoming-unburdened.com, both ways. And I can
Okay.
link it in the comments.
Okay. All right. Make sure you go back and put it in the comments. So, Shane, I want to thank you for being brave enough to share your story with the world. And it's not, like I said, just a story that you're sharing, it's a testimony that you're sharing. And somebody's going to see themselves in there and put that book down, read it, put it down, and be like, this is my story right here. But when they get to the part about where you don't allow it to keep shaping your life, that's when they're going to get their aha moment like, wait a minute, I can move past this. This doesn't dictate my ending, and that's what we got to realize. We have so many choices and roads to take, and that's the good thing about God. God just didn't give us a straight and just straight highway. We can go here, we can go there, just as long as we're being directed by Him and we stick close to Him. So thank you so much. I'm glad that your life had turned out for the good for you, but you was determined to make it happen. So I want everybody, make sure you support. Go out there and get her book. She's a first time author. Give her some support. All right. So, all right, y'all, we're signing off because we got some more conversation that we don't want y'all to hear. We get into the deep stuff. Y'all got to get the book. Once y'all get the book, then y'all going to be like, oh, okay. And we might let you back in the room to have a conversation with us. But anyway, I want to thank y'all. Tune in next week. I'm looking for another guest. If you would love to be a guest on the Ruby Girl Talk Show, please go to rubygirl.net and click the talk show tab and book for us. Please book. All right. Y'all have a great and wonderful night. And thank you all.
Thanks.